porta USB.
Faccio che metti sul destro?
Se non, cioè, se lo voglio leggere dalla femmina perché non rimanga nel computer, se lui ha mai cancellato l'uomo.
Magari l'ha cancellato dopo. Perché sennò mette le sequele del tempo.
No, ora va bene sicuramente. Ripresa?
Vediamo nell'inquadratura com'è.
Just to see if okay. Okay. There, okay. So can you raise this one because
mold?
Yes.
Okay.
This is the presentation. Something's changed. Perfecto. Simile.
Sì, far vedere.
Buongiorno, sono Alberto Pozzolo, volevo sapere se mi vedete e se il collegamento funziona.
Professore, buongiorno, non la vediamo, ma la sentiamo benissimo.
Non mi vedete?
No,
Allora, ah sì, no, perché dovevo attivare il video, in effetti, aiuta. Ok, adesso spero che sia a posto, giusto?
perfetto, ora sì.
Allora io disattivo l'audio e aspetto il momento in cui potremo iniziare.
Ok, perfetto,
Grazie.
grazie a lei.
Se può fare, vai, registro. Comincia a registrare. Per verificare magari che tutto
Tu
sia
parli in qualsiasi microfono, il professore ti sente.
il microfono per questo e questo?
Penso di sì, però il professore c'ha le varie.
And you have that, and that's already attached, yes? That's already working? Yeah. Wonderful. I love using these. I use these all over. Now, oh yeah, now, do you control or do you want me to? Test. I'm here. Test. Okay. Thank you. You gotta come with me guys. You go to Paris, Stockholm, dress warm, and then back to the East. Dress cool. It's impossible. Impossible to travel. You do need to go and knock out. So go tell him that you have he has a separate item there. So I told him that we would stay in front of this frame right here and no running, just walking slow. When I'm a big stage, well, because but when I'm on a big stage without a webcam, I can move across the stage all the time really quickly. Here we go slowly. So go ask him if he has a separate mic up in the booth for that. Here, this is for you.
Good morning. If you agree, we can start our workshop. I'm the role of introducing this conference as responsible of the library and the e-learning department of the University of Siena. And I get the task to organize this workshop together with the colleagues of the university and together with Elsevier. But before to start, I need to represent our rector, Professor Frati, who cannot be there today, but he addressed you in the letter you will find in your folder. And he supported very much this occasion because one of his aims is try to mix together the good and excellent quality of our research together with the innovation in education. So this occasion is fit very well with this project of the University of Siena. And during the last few years, we tried to work quite a lot in terms of distance learning, improving of e-learning, together with our different seats in Arezzo and Grosseto, beside the teaching we have at the University of Siena in Siena. We are trying to approach many other issues like the lifelong learning or the adjournment of doctors and the nursery. So we are looking for new functionalities, for new infrastructure that can help us to work in this field. Yesterday, I had the pleasure to lead our guests to discover Siena and the Santa Maria della Scala and the role the University of Siena played during the Middle Age and the level of innovation we had at that time.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
The concept is that we are expecting the university is still looking at the same role in the new context, in the new environment. So we have a very important past, and we try to transfer to the future what could be done in terms of integration of different community. We are in a time frame where internet is playing a crucial role. We have a lot of documentation that is available freely on the web. We have maybe an overload of information. So the idea, one of the issue of this conference is try to investigate which could be the relationship or the partnership in between universities and publishers. What is the role we can play in this environment in order to provide good, reliable, and affordable information to our students, to our teachers, to all the people that are working in the universities. I'm here also because I'm a member of the national body for the negotiation made by the CRUI-CARE Association, and it is my pleasure before to start the conference to invite Professor Pozzolo, who is the head of the CRUI organization, to introduce the conference.
So, I hope you can hear me well enough. We made a lot of trials yesterday to see whether this connection was going to work. It is indeed my pleasure, as the coordinator of CARE, as Guido said, CARA is the consortium in charge of negotiating the contracts for the acquisition of electronic resources for Italian universities, for the entire system of Italian universities. And it is indeed my pleasure to give a forward to this conference that I've seen from the program is very interesting, and it's indeed very innovative. The title of the conference is in itself interesting. I mean, thinking of the future of e-health going from Tuscany and from Siena in particular to the world, I think, as Guido already said, brings us back at the center of the stage. And with us, I mean Tuscany, Siena, and Italy, as it was in the Renaissance. And I think that everybody that has been to Siena, I'm sure the people that Guido brought around yesterday agree with that, everybody agrees that we managed to provide a good contribution at the time of Renaissance, and I trust that we will also provide such a contribution today. Well, possibly on a rather smaller scale, but we need to be ambitious, so I guess that the activities today are going to be very fruitful. As Guido said, this is a conference organized by Siena, but I like to think about it as the result also of the activities that the team that within CARA is in charge of the relationships with Elsevier carried on during all these past years. So in this sense, I wish to thank Guido for what he has done, and also the rest of the team for managing to put together such a distinguished panel of experts. It is my belief that occasions like this can show that a cooperation between universities and publishers is possible, and it can also be beneficial for both parties. As an economist, I'm an economist, I know how important it is for suppliers to understand what the needs of the customers are. And this is even more true when the products that are to be supplied are at the frontier of knowledge, as it is certainly the case for all innovations in the business of disseminating the results of scientific research. So all the business of publishers seen in an extended way, as indeed Elsevier is interpreting its role in today's environment. I'm sure that all those working in universities will benefit from learning what the new tools that can be used to better train our medical students are going to be provided by Elsevier. And I'm also confident on the other side that Elsevier will benefit from the comments of the university community in order to adapt and develop their products. I think that events like this are a win-win solution, a solution where everybody gains something. Using economist jargon, this is a Pareto optimum or a Pareto improving equilibrium. Let me conclude by saying that, of course, I need to take the occasion to reassure Elsevier's management that this does not mean that in our future negotiations we will be any softer in trying to contain their market power. Everybody plays his role, so I think that we need to keep playing ours as you need to keep playing yours. But let's leave that for tomorrow, and as for today, let me wish to all of you a very fruitful conference.
Thank you, Professor Pozzolo, and now we can start. I'm very happy that Professoressa Bracci accepted to chair this session, and I invite her to introduce the conference.
So welcome everybody, and briefly introduce myself for those who doesn't know me. So I'm chair of the Department of Medical Biotechnology. I'm a teacher and professor of biochemistry at the medical school and at the master's degree in medical biotechnologies. So actually, I'm very glad to be here and share this session, even because I'm pretty convinced that this is a way that we have to follow. But I must confess that I'm very curious to hearing from the speaker, because I don't know much on that, and this is a problem that sometimes we have here in Italy. And so just for starting, glad to introduce our first speaker, who is Dr. Peter Edelstein. He is a Chief Medical Officer at Elsevier, and he is board certified in both general surgery and colorectal surgery. He has practiced at many hospitals, the most recent Stanford University. He has won several awards for teaching, and he is a well-known speaker, author, and also radio and television medical expert. So I'm glad to welcome here, and he will speak about addressing the greatest challenge to high-value healthcare. So please, Dr. Edelstein.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you so much. I'm an American, so I probably don't need a microphone. Good morning. What a pleasure to be here. This is my first visit to Siena, and it's beautiful. So I called my wife yesterday, who's back in the United States, and I said, you have to come to Siena. And we made a deal. If Donald Trump wins today, we're moving to Siena. And if Hillary Clinton wins today, we're moving to Siena. So I'm looking for a house, if anyone wants to rent one. It's beautiful to be here. So if I may ask, how many are students? And if you're watching on the web, you still have to raise your hand. Students? Some students? Eager? Looking forward to a beautiful future. Yeah, they don't know what's coming. The rest, physicians? Practicing physicians? Librarians, the smartest people in the room? I'm a surgeon, you're smarter. So I am in the best role at Elsevier. I'm the chief medical officer, so I spend much of my time traveling around the world. 2 days ago, Abu Dhabi and Dubai. The 3 weeks before that, all over Asia. The week before that, Brazil. I fly home every once in a while to make sure that my wife and the man who cleans the pool are getting along still. I think they'll be married soon. But what that does is it allows me to meet with the leaders of healthcare around the world. Ministers of health, government officials, the top doctors, nurses, pharmacists, librarians, and educators in China, Japan, Korea, and of course, I've practiced for a long time in the United States. So I have a reasonable understanding of healthcare reform around the world, what is happening, what's working, and what's not. So I will share some of my thoughts with you today. Now I have to thank Dr. Badalamente because yesterday was remarkable. He gave me a personal tour everywhere. And the hospital, Santa Maria, the history of it is unbelievable. Where in the 12th century, anywhere else in the world, could you openly do autopsies, study disease like that, without people saying this is sacrilege, blasphemy? So progressive. But now it's time to continue that journey and give up your textbooks. And you guys who are so good on Facebook and Google, that's how medicine is practiced today in most of the world, no textbooks. My children who are in high school don't have textbooks, they have iPads, there's no textbooks. There's too much to know. And that's what we'll talk about. There are many, many challenges to healthcare. Money, diabetes, heart failure, Zika. But I'll tell you today what I think is the greatest challenge, if it lets me.
Is it going?
No, we need the expert to come now, the technologist. He'll give it a second. He'll fix it.
Do you want me to try from here?
Oh, no, there's so much to do. You'll hate it.
Please.
No, he'll fix it. It has to be plugged in wherever it is.
Just to see whether it's a remote control is not working.
Yeah, you can check this.
No, it's not.
Yes, the greatest challenge is technology. All right, now we're working. Thank you. Looks good. This is good. I've got it. Perfect. No, it's working.
Okay.
It was working. Do that. Was that you? No, let me do it then. That's fine. Here, I'll do it from here. That's no problem. Yeah. No problem. So, let's just talk about information. Think about everything that all humanity knows about the body, about disease, about anatomy, medications, surgery, everything we know about health and healthcare, okay? How long does it take for all of that information to double? So back in 1950, which many people here weren't around to know, and certainly the students, healthcare doubled every 50 years. And remember, no internet, no Instagram, no Twitter. Every 50 years, everything we knew about healthcare doubled. It's still pretty impressive. But then we met the computer age, didn't we? And look what happened. By 1980, everything we knew about medicine, disease, treatments, every 7 years it doubled. And then what happened? And so when you finish medical school, right? They're young. By the time they finish medical school now, everything we know about everything in health, everything, will double every 73 days. Imagine that. Every 2 months, everything will double. So, when we talk about that, thank you. You did get it to work. Beautiful. Thank you. I appreciate that. Let's go back. Beautiful. Thank you so much. Yes, working great. So think about that. Everything mankind knows about medicine doubles every 2 months. Even the most arrogant doctor, and to be clear, I did not win that award. I came in second. Even the most arrogant doctor cannot possibly say they can keep up with all of the information, particularly genetics. It's impossible. Your textbooks that we publish are already too old. Textbooks can't keep up with genetics. It's doubling every 2 months. The amount of knowledge that we are gaining in genetics makes the learning about computer chips seem very slow. Nothing in the history of mankind has been learned so quickly as genetics, not even close. It's amazing. So start from there and think about all that you have to know. Now, I can be in Abu Dhabi, or London, or New York, or Beijing, or Jakarta, and everywhere you go, we all want the same thing for our patients. We want the highest quality, the best health care in the world, for the least money, consistent, so the same thing that the nurse and the doctor and the patient and the librarian and the pharmacist are reading is the same, right? We want it to be sustainable. This can't be every once in a while people get good care. They must always get good care. That is healthcare reform. So no one disagrees, right? This is how we should practice medicine. What stands in the way? What is the biggest challenge? One word: variability. Does that word translate well? Variability? Make sense? People do things differently? Variability. Now I want you to not think about medicine. Just think about your life, right? Just your life. Let's think about variability. Let's think about this. How many of you drive to work in your car or drive to school? Drive, right? Okay, great. So you drive. So tomorrow, I'd like you to drive to work, but I want you to go first to Amsterdam, but be on time. Okay? Ma'am, what time do you set your alarm in the morning? 7 in the morning. Tomorrow, maybe 6. Okay, now she's embarrassed. 7. No, 6. No, 5. 6. So tomorrow, I want you to get to work on time, but I want you to set your alarm for 8. Who has children like I do? 2 teenage girls. I'm being punished. So, your children, you tell them to brush their teeth every night. Tonight, they brush with chocolate sauce. Okay? Why do we do this? Why does she set her alarm for 6?
Because if she sets it for later, she's late to work. If she sets it earlier, she misses out on sleep. Right? Why tomorrow will you go the same way you always drive to work? Because you've reduced the variability, you know how long it will take. The only one who believes children should brush their teeth with chocolate is the dentist. But you know if they brush correctly, you've reduced the variability, the chances of their cavities are less. The reality, as I'm saying here, is as humanity has progressed, almost everything we do, we try to reduce variability. I need to know every month how much I'm paying for rent. No surprises. I need to know what time my children have to be at school. Right? Everything we do, we try to reduce variability. In the United States, healthcare experts look to one other industry to understand how big an impact reducing variability can have on patients. The airline industry. Now, I give a similar talk all over the world, and when I really want to have fun, I'm talking in China and I show a picture of a Japan airline. That really gets them upset. And I was in Abu Dhabi and I used Emirates, which is Dubai. So I found the right airplane here. But think about this. 20 years ago, when we'd get on an airplane, it was entirely up to the pilot to decide if anyone should check if there was enough gas. It was entirely up to the pilot to decide if the tires needed to be changed. The pilot decided whether the wings needed to be checked for cracks. So you got on the plane and the pilot said, it's late, I'm sure we have enough gas, let's go. That kind of variability caused crashes. Today, anywhere in the world, the most experienced pilot must go through a checklist on every single thing before he takes off, even if he took off in the same plane an hour earlier. And when the plane lands, the most experienced engineer must go through a checklist to look at every part of the wing and tire, even if the plane landed there an hour before. That is why it is 1,000 times safer for us to fly tonight from Florence to Paris than it is for me to drive to the Florence airport. Far and away the safest form of transportation in the world is the airline industry, because they use evidence-based information and everyone must follow guidelines. And they have saved so many lives that in the United States, there's a book from this industry that has become the Bible of healthcare reform. It is called Why Hospitals Should Fly. And every doctor and every medical student and every librarian and every nurse and every nursing student in the United States has read this book. It's not very long, so it's perfect for a surgeon, very short. It is worth reading because the airline industry showed us when you reduce variability, people don't die. What better example for healthcare where people die? In healthcare, if there's too much variability, it means it's worse for the patient and it costs more. So over here, there's variability. Some patients get mammograms, some don't. If you don't get a mammogram because of variability, that's worse for you when you get a breast cancer, and it costs all of us more to treat a late breast cancer. If you get the wrong dose of medication and your kidneys fail because they just decided to try it or they didn't know better, that's worse for you and it costs more. In healthcare, better care costs less money. It's unlike any other industry. If you want a nicer car, you pay more. If you want a wonderful dinner like last night, you pay more. If you want better care for patients, it's less expensive to give flu shots, cancer screening, the right medicine, the correct surgery. Less expensive. This is where we want to be. But of course, if you tell a physician, particularly you tell a surgeon, this is how you must practice medicine, we throw a tantrum. You can't tell me. I'm an artist. That's not a straight line. There's still variability. The difference is over here, I've asked you all to bake me cookies today. You put in chocolate chips. You like peanut butter. She likes nuts. That's all over here, acceptable variability. But this gentleman, he puts in pickle juice. So, over here is the little boy in the emergency room who comes in with the classic presentation of appendicitis. You know that presentation, right? He wasn't hungry, a little diarrhea, he had pain around his belly button, now the pain's here, low-grade fever, the white counts up a little, and over here he comes to the emergency room, and I'm a surgeon. I've operated on 10,000 appendicitis. And I press on him and I say, appendicitis. But to be sure, over here is okay, I get an ultrasound. Very inexpensive, very accurate. And the ultrasound says, appendicitis. We're still okay. But in most hospitals, then they move over here and say, how about a CAT scan? What do you think the CAT scan will show? Appendicitis. You delay the surgery, which is bad for the patient, and you waste money everywhere. So variability based on experience, training is good. But if it gets over there, it hurts patients and it wastes a huge amount of money. Let's talk about the damage caused by variability in my country. And I promise you it's the same in your country, you just haven't published all of the data yet. Everywhere I go and show the data that we must publish by law, people go, oh, not in my country. I was in Australia a few weeks ago, and for the first time they published their data exactly the same proportionally. So I asked the students, in the United States, what is the #1 killer of adults? Right, brilliant. They're brilliant students. It's amazing. Heart disease. The #2 killer of adults in the United States is cancer. The #3 killer of adults in the United States is me. The third leading cause of death in the United States are hospitals. Doctors, nurses, pharmacists, and technicians kill between 200,000 and 400,000 Americans through preventable errors every year. The #3 cause of death is preventable medical errors. So in Australia, they said, not here. Published last week, 18,000 deaths a year are preventable in Australia, the exact proportion of 25 million to 350 million. Everywhere. And if you're a country like Indonesia with poor health care, it's way more. I promise you, as much as you don't want to believe it, in Italy, you kill a lot of people trying to do good. If you don't admit that, you can't fix it. You kill thousands and thousands of people, not on purpose. I don't go to work and go, hey, I'm going to kill someone today. #3 cause. Every day in the United States, every 24 hours, 10,000 Americans suffer a serious complication that's completely avoidable. The nurse gives the wrong drug, kidney failure. How about this? In your hospitals, you have curtains between patients? Yeah? Yeah, you're killing people. The studies all show that those curtains carry all sorts of infections. We don't have curtains. So you think you're doing the right thing when the nurse and med student close the curtain and go see the next patient? You're causing complications. See this? I have a tie pin. Now, it's not because I'm fashionable, because I'm not fashionable. The studies in the United States show that surgeons who don't wear tie pins, my tie carries infection from patient to patient every time it touches them. So every day, here and where I live, you're infecting patients by simple things like closing curtains. Because your patients have diseases. 10,000 Americans a day suffer a serious complication, which is totally avoidable. And I promise you, thousands here do. You're not bad doctors, nurses, and others. This is the real world. Now, If you want to be objective about this and just talk money, here's how much we spend every year to treat avoidable problems. So that's $1 trillion that we don't get to spend on education, food. By this time tomorrow, we may have to build a wall with Mexico. It's possible. I hear one of the presidential candidates wants to build a big wall. We need that money. We spend $1 trillion, 1 trillion, treating things that all of us cause. That's not great health care. I'll give you some real examples. Let's pretend that your wife or your mother or your sister or your patient has pancreatic cancer, okay? Her survival is very dependent on her chemotherapy. Here are her orders. These are real orders for chemotherapy in English. Would you let your mother or wife or sister be cared for in a hospital that does that? I don't know if that's for chemotherapy or if it's a recipe for a cake. That's real orders for chemotherapy. Now in the United States, you can't do that anymore. There is no writing of orders. And if you still do that in your hospital, which you may, right? You write orders. With all due respect, you can't take care of my family because the best hospitals in the world stopped doing this 10 years ago. Or this. What if your daughter or your niece has diabetes? There's an order for Amaryl 12 milligrams, right? And that's what most of you see. And so did the pharmacist. That's not what the order says. The order says 2 milligrams. And when the child got 12 milligrams, 6 times the right dose, she had seizures, convulsions, and died. Because of handwriting. That's a real order. That's a real death. It's just not her real photo. So if you still write orders here, by hand, do you write orders here by hand? Orders by hand anywhere here? Good. Because you can't do this anymore if you want to take care of people. Good. Those are real orders. What about this? You have intensive care units here, right? ICUs for the very sick. Everywhere in the world, everywhere, it's normal for every ICU patient every day to get a chest x-ray. Right? The evidence shows that more than half of ICU patients don't need a daily chest x-ray. It serves no purpose. Even if they have tubes, it doesn't matter. You waste millions of dollars a year, and all you're doing is giving radiation to their lungs. Why would you do that? So I was in China, and they laughed. They said, well, but in the United States, how expensive is a chest x-ray? $360. They said, oh, here, it's only 45 American dollars. I said, here you have 1.4 billion people. You waste several $100 million a year on just chest x-rays. They said, that's true. You get chest x-rays every day? Everybody does. Why? Why would you do that? Every study shows that's a waste of time, waste of money, and it hurts patients. That's called knowledge variability. Now, in the previous one I showed you, that's called operational variability. Very simple to understand. Bad handwriting. Easy to fix, right? Just type orders, right? Operational variability is very dangerous, very easy. By far and away, knowledge variability is harder. Remember, knowledge doubles every 73 days. Who keeps up with it? How do I know what I do not know? I don't know what I do not know. Very dangerous. What about this? This is a good surgeon. He's in Siena. He's a good doctor. A patient comes in with colon cancer. You've seen that yet? Colon cancer. The second most common cancer killer in the Western world. Colon cancer. I operate on colon cancer every month. I'll take out the little cancer piece of intestine, hook it back together. He's cured. Because how would the doctor remember that this patient's 52, not 65? This patient's cancer is here, not here. So this patient has a genetic syndrome, and if you don't take out his entire colon, In 5 years, he gets cancer back, and cancer of the ureters, and cancer of the stomach. How can the doctor keep up with that genetics? How can the doctor know that there are 4 DNA mismatch repair genes that are abnormal in this man? So my last patient who got the wrong standard surgery, when I met him with his next cancer, he died. He was 45. And when I did a colonoscopy on his 19-year-old son, his son had a cancer. It's not a bad doctor, but how can he keep up with the genetics? This is 6% of all colon cancers in the world. For a 52-year-old man with a right side cancer, it's guaranteed he has that. And you must do a blood test on all of his children and relatives to save their lives, but they don't. That's pretty impressive knowledge variability. People die because of this knowledge variability. Nurses are in this too. The first group that suffers with healthcare reform when we start reducing costs are nurses. They say nurses can take care of any patient. I know that this nurse has been on geriatric medicine for 8 years, but to save money, tonight we'll put her on orthopedics. I'm sure she'll remember how to take care of these patients. Nurses are a great way to save money. Fewer nurses, more responsibility, but they don't remember how to take care of everything. If you have been an obstetric nurse for 5 years and tonight, pediatric oncology, you're scared and your patient should be scared. Knowledge variability, very dangerous for nurses. So, many people get very excited. You know electronic health records, electronic medical records, you use these terms, EMRs? These are the computer systems that keep everything. So in the United States, everyone's had one for 10 years. We spent billions of dollars on EMRs because they were going to end variability, cure cancer, bring peace to the Middle East, end world hunger. They don't do any of that. They're just computers. They're just a different way of moving information. Before EMRs, we practiced medicine. My daughters, they say, "Dad, before GPS, did you and Mom ever leave the house?" I said, "Yes. We got on our dinosaurs and we rode to McDonald's, but your mom would get lost a lot." Before EMRs, there was good medicine and bad medicine. EMRs are just a way to get some information faster. EMRs do a little bit to reduce operational variability because they can do things like remove handwriting, right? Make it clear. But the big problem is not operational variability, it's knowledge. How do you reduce knowledge variability? It's not technology. It's current, credible, evidence-based information. Current. That's great that this hospital started in the 12th century. That's not how we treat sinusitis today. Credible. If I go onto the internet, I can find out that breast cancer can be cured with carrot juice, and that Donald Trump and Elvis Presley have an alien baby. Credible's hard. Evidence-based, right? That's what's important. So I was recently in India, and I'm talking to a big cancer hospital system, 26 cancer hospitals across India. They said, our problem is only 8 of the hospitals have the EMR computer system. That's it. How can we help people? And I said, I'm confused. So if I come to Mumbai with my wife, and she's just been diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma, because the cancer center in Mumbai has a computer, she'll be cured using the Stanford University protocol. That's the treatment. He said, yes. But if my wife and I are 80 kilometers outside of the city, and your hospital has no EMR, she doesn't get the same treatment? And now they get uncomfortable. They wish they had not invited me. I said, well, do you have smartphones? Yes. Well, look it up. If you don't have smartphones, I will write the treatment on a piece of paper. If you don't have paper, I'll write it in the dirt with a stick, what radiation and chemotherapy she needs. Technology is very helpful. In the past, books and journals. Today, smartphones, iPads, EMRs. Tomorrow, holograms from Mars. These are all great, but what brings good medical care consistently for less money is information. Information, right? I can write down a recipe for food, or you can get it off of the cloud, but it's still the recipe that matters. That's what's mattering. And we call this type of information in healthcare clinical decision support. You've heard that term? CDS. Around the world we talk about CDS, clinical decision support. What does that mean? The most current information from a credible university or group of universities, based on evidence if possible. If no evidence, based on experts. But what it's not based on is Wikipedia. A study in Britain of Wikipedia. The most used reference tool by doctors in the world is Wikipedia. And they studied the 10 most common diseases treated by doctors. And they looked at Wikipedia. And in 9 of 10, the information was not only wrong, it was so wrong as to be dangerous. Why do doctors use Wikipedia? It's fast. It's just wrong. There are many, many types of technology clinical decision support solutions. You can spend tens of millions of dollars, and some of them aren't very helpful. Now that's fine when I'm in Abu Dhabi because they spend tens of millions of dollars on everything. But it's not so fine for the rest of us. I'm a surgeon, very simple. I'm not a librarian, much smarter. So I think in very simple terms. There are 2 main categories of information for the best hospitals to buy. One is like a seatbelt. You have seatbelts in your cars, right? In the United States, the law says you cannot sell any car without a seatbelt. In the United States, it's illegal to drive anywhere without everyone having seatbelts. Seatbelts are very good, right? Last year, 39,000 Americans died and 240,000 were injured because they didn't click. Seatbelts are a great way to protect people if they use them. I call seatbelts a pull solution. You must actively pull them. Clinical decision support solutions are the same. Reference solutions. We have one called Clinical Key. We have one called Clinical Key Nursing. One called Clinical Pharmacology. On your iPad, when I'm outside my operating room between surgeries, big surgeries, I go on the iPad, I can look something up, right? Very quickly. All of the evidence about colon cancer wrapped around the lower spine. But remember when we talked about the cancer surgeon who didn't know about the genetic disease? How do you look something up that you don't know you don't know? He doesn't know his cancer patient has a genetic disease and needs a different surgery. So like the seatbelt, it's good if you know how to use them. If you know what you need to learn about, it's helpful, right? What else does your car have for safety? It has airbags. You have airbags in your car? Airbags in your car? When you get in your car, do you turn on the airbag? No. When you get in your car, before you hit the car in front of you, you push a button? No. Airbags are automatic. Airbags push safety. In healthcare, the best hospitals in the world, the best countries, and that's where I travel all the time, to the best places, they have push solutions. So when the patient comes in with colon cancer, and the patient's 52 years old, and the colon cancer is on the right, and the patient has a genetic defect called Lynch syndrome, and the surgeon doesn't know about Lynch syndrome, and the medical students never heard of Lynch syndrome, and you admit the patient, orders from your hospital come up and say, for a patient who's not 65, For a patient with colon cancer on the right, we suggest that you get a blood test for this genetic disorder. It pushes the best health care to you. Even if I don't know, my hospital knows. I must consider a blood test for a genetic disorder. How often, how fast does every medical bit of information double? Every 73 days, all knowledge in healthcare doubles. Push solutions are much stronger. Most cars have both. The Mayo Clinic, Harvard, the Royal College of Medicine, Dubai Health Authority, both. The best hospitals in the world have pull solutions where a doctor, a nurse, a patient, a librarian, a pharmacist can search for information on a reference solution, but also information is pushed right to them. And I'll show you how that works. So every place I go, I must think about where you are in reform. For Italy, in my experience traveling around Europe, Asia, the Middle East, North America, South America, you're fairly early on. You have much less infrastructure in Europe than most of the world. Most of the world has EMRs going in. Most of the world has already got national healthcare reform movements with lots of money behind them. Not everywhere. So we start simple here to make a difference. You have pull solutions and push. For doctors, the single most powerful tool used around the world by doctors, surgeons like me, are order sets. Every time you admit a patient, information, guidelines, and orders are suggested to you based on what your hospital, your university, or your government believes is the right way to treat people. That's how you reduce variability. When the boy who has appendicitis, signs and symptoms, and I press on him and he has appendicitis, and the ultrasound shows appendicitis, in the emergency department, the order set says, do not get a CAT scan. He has appendicitis. Don't waste money. Doctors also use reference solutions. Ours is Clinical Key. You know Clinical Key well, right? Clinical Key. I type in inherited breast cancer. I can look at 2 million images, thousands and thousands and thousands of the most recent journal articles, book chapters, guidelines, patient information, videos, in a click of a button. Doctors also need solutions in radiology and pathology. Those are different, right? Radiologists. My wife is trained at Harvard, pediatric radiologist. She doesn't go search. She looks at pictures all day. They need special tools like I'll show you for pathology and radiology, which you see. For nurses, nurses need reference solutions. In the United States, I call healthcare reform the dawn of nursing. Nurses are doing more clinical work than they've ever done. They're becoming junior physicians. They need reference solutions, and they need something that pushes information. So a nurse who has practiced in pediatrics for the last 5 years and comes to my surgical oncology floor for a night shift, if she uses our tools, she has 2,000 videos, 2 minutes each, on everything that she needs. She wants to know how to take care of a surgery wound in my cancer patient. Her administrator has sent her the videos. Here's how you take care of Dr. Edelstein's patients. 2 minutes shows her how to change dressings, give medications, take care of patients who are immunocompromised. Remember this example? The child who got 6 times the dose of Amaryl, the cancer patient who got the wrong chemo. You can fix that with order sets. This is what it looks like. In my hospital for this cancer, these are the recommendations of the hospital or the university or the government. By the way, if you don't understand why, you can click on information. In our hospital, these are required quality measures. Can you read that? versus that. Yeah, if you use this, you cannot take care of my patients. Remember I told you that in your ICUs, where your patients get chest x-rays every day, the studies show that more than half of those x-rays are unnecessary, even if they have tubes and lines, waste money, and all you're doing is paying to deliver radiation. The best hospitals in the world don't get chest x-rays every day. They use reference solutions and order sets. On our reference solution, in 90 seconds and 3 clicks, you will see that routine daily chest x-rays in the ICU is not indicated for half the patients in the world, and you can even have a rating system, evidence-based. When I admit a patient to the ICU, it's with a number based on a score. And if the number's high, they get a daily chest x-ray. And when it's not, they don't. In the United States, that's several $100 million a year saved. And people don't get radiation just because they have an endotracheal tube. All of the studies show that that's ridiculous. Remember the cancer patient? He's a good surgeon here, right? Are you surgeons in the background? God bless you, so am I. The best looking people in the room. This is a patient with Lynch syndrome, right? This patient is one of the 6% of colorectal cancer patients who has a genetic disorder, so the treatment is not taking out a piece of colon, it's the entire colon, or he has a 19% chance of a recurrence, plus ureteral cancer, gastric cancer, and 1 out of every 4 of his relatives will have the same cancer risks and ovarian cancer. He's going to do the wrong surgery. I see the patient back and he's dying. Reference solution or order sets. It says to this doctor, in our hospital, consider this please. If this patient is younger than 65, if this patient's colon cancer is on the right side, it does not matter that you do not know what that means. It means he may have a genetic syndrome. Please get a blood test. And when they get the blood test and it is positive, it says to the surgeon, you have to take out all of the colon or he's going to die. And you have to test his family because, like my last patient who died when he was 45 from the wrong surgery, at least I saved his 19-year-old son who had a cancer. Why would you just leave it up to the pilot to check the gas on the plane? The law requires that the gas is checked every time, whether the pilot wants to or not. Why would you leave it up to every surgeon in the world to decide the treatment when there's only one right treatment? Does this make sense? Variability is dangerous. Remember the nurse. She has not taken care of an orthopedic surgery patient in 9 years. She's scared. The patient is very scared. Well, reference solutions and skills, right at the bedside. Videos of what to do. She can search external fixator and read about it. Immediately understand the best care used everywhere in the world for a patient like that, without having to guess. And if that's my leg, I don't want her to guess. What about this? So my wife is a pediatric radiologist from Harvard. She's a good doctor. But she's not on call every night. Most of the hospitals at night don't have pediatric radiologists or neuroradiologists. The x-rays are read by general radiologists. At night in many hospitals around the world, emergency room doctors, non-radiologists read x-rays. Think that's dangerous? Think there's variability in their knowledge? There is. So we make tools that allow them to look at an x-ray on a screen, describe what they see, and they get millions of images that narrow down quickly till they see what it looks like. And thousands of pieces of information from radiology experts so they can quickly identify that that is a lymphoma. They don't have to call my wife every night. Same thing in pathology. Think about lymphoma alone. For B-cell adult lymphoma, there are 32 genetic subtypes. And every day there are more. Pathologists need visual tools to understand the different genetic stains. Otherwise, it's very hard to make the right diagnosis unless you're an expert in lymphoma, which most hospitals don't have. So around the world, the challenge is variability in what we know. Health knowledge doubles every 73 days. The answer is not just technology, though it helps with all that information. You can't keep up with books. Nowhere in the world that I go to they use books anymore in hospitals if they're good hospitals. They don't. You can't. Too much knowledge. You have to use technology to empower your nurses, your doctors, your patients, your pharmacists, your librarians with information. And that's what's happening in almost everywhere I visit. Books and journals are now electronic. At the fingertips, at bedside, all the world's information, any way you want to look at it. Genetic basis of tuberculosis and diabetes in Indonesia. Bing, 300 articles. I want to see an image of a PET scan on recurrent ovarian cancer before I operate. 2 million images, pick one. You can't do that in books and journals anymore, so the best hospitals don't. If you aren't there yet, and I know you're not there yet, it's time. Because if you're a student and you want to practice in the real world, if you're a surgeon, the best hospitals in the world don't use books and journals anymore. We have electronic systems with healthcare information in my operating room. I can pull up in my operating room 2 million images, 2 million, and videos, and reference. Variability is the enemy. Information is the answer. Information about the body doubles every 73 days. Technology is the way to get there. It's that simple. Does that make sense to people? So, you have been very patient with my English. Thank you. I am happy to take any questions. And again, I'm very pleased to be in Siena. It's a real privilege. Thank you very much. Questions? It's all perfectly clear, right? Yes. Okay.
So, is there any question for?
No questions about the election.
Or we have time to have question at the end if you wish, so we collect more information and then can have a discussion at the end. So I was told that it's better to have a coffee break now, and then because we are a bit late for the coffee break, so that and then we start with the Professor Bocchia after the break. So how much do we have? 20 minutes? Yeah. So in 20 minutes, back here, please.
If you're in the Middle East, they start with it. Yeah, but if you're in Asia, the U.S. But they're attentive and there are people watching.
I knew it was interesting.
Good.
Very good.
Hopefully
yeah, very good.
I didn't go too quickly. So.
Yeah, it's okay, and
Come back in there. Yeah, I was going to say I'd miss her. part, you send me something. But that would be nice to see what the software does, but what you're doing is you have a data repository, analytics, and you're reducing variability that way, yes? You send me some information on it. I would love to see.
This is the
Oh, yeah.
the data budget.
You send me this. Will you send me this? Will you send me this, Tony? Because you're doing the right thing for that. We often work with people who have new technologies that use analytics. Absolutely. And you're protected if you've already filed your patent. I know, I did take that. So you send me that, and we'll see what you're doing. That's your flow chart. But it's the same concept, yes. Send me what this is.
Shows the different
immagina un ospedale piccolino dove di casistica ne hai poca.
Stare in piedi qua e guardo lì perché se no io se nei giorni...
No, te stai qua, ti metti qua. No, è lui che era un po', hai visto... Ascolta, io ovviamente, come ti dicevo, io l'ho visto adesso, quindi te ematologist. Cioè, anche io, cioè, però il tuo... Ma e poi soprattutto cosa, nel senso che cioè, c'è solo scritto che è sempre professore di medico. Quindi correggo questo e... Vuoi altri introduzioni? No, tanto sei qui in veste di... Sì, vabbè, e se questa... Due anni fa, quando lui ha capito. Sì, certamente. No, ma ti preoccupare perché te... Sì, comunque, per quello che lo considero proprio il target è preciso. Dimmelo. Che vuoi? No, questa cosa era, io non avevo capito bene che cos'era, perché lui si diceva che potevano essere gli studenti, portate gli studenti. Gli studenti devono venire. Gli studenti sono il target numero uno, si diceva ora, per i paesi abbastanza avanzati come noi, il target sono i medici, ok, ma in primis gli studenti. Perché...
Questo sembra tutto semplice, però non è che la medicina è tutta, cioè nel senso fa un tweet una pazienza.
No, però questo ti permette di vedere più cose.
Bisogna sempre coniugarlo in quelle che poi anche la cultura di un paese, tanto poi perché non deve solo fare casare, deve anche anche ricogliere le mani. Però adesso noi abbiamo il resto loro, ma loro sono cioè non devo dargli un'informazione, perché loro devono lavare sempre con no, perché devono Sì, ma New York è ancora uno stato indeciso, ho visto. New York è ancora, oltretutto che lei è stata anche governatore.
I ricercatori sono così, il 99,9%. Io non ne conoscevo uno.
Sì, c'è anche un po' un... come un po' un po' purtroppo quando fanno questo chiaramente poi c'è gente che purtroppo su queste cose qui, certo. Perché guardate che sì, infatti, sì, alla fine c'è una, è una, appunto no, ma però è lo stesso concetto. Il concetto è lo stesso concetto.
Se poi vogliamo, il palio è anche consentito pagare, cioè tirarlo giù dal cavallo, c'è varie cose consentite. Se cominciamo a lavorare nel palio, il palio successivo si potrebbe effettivamente. No, no, lo so.
Comunque loro sono avanti nel 30 anni, perché io ho fatto l'esame per il Basic Science e il Medical Science in America, ho fatto 4 anni, USMLE, e già che fanno il quiz, cioè che fa quiz, facendo quiz, perché era una cosa cartacea, quando ti avevo il quiz, avevo una domanda, non so una cosa, che ti diceva, non so, di là, hai gli occhi rossi, per faccio il cazzo, sì, c'è la cosa che marzo, e quindi diceva, insomma, in fondo può essere un sacco di cose, no? Però anche poi diceva, è marzo, ha gli occhi rossi, ecco, facevano, e la domanda era, esattamente lo specchio poco, è quello, perché loro ragionavano già così, ora hanno solo messo il computer, cioè, hanno sempre ragionato così, noi invece diciamo, beh sì, sicuramente a quello, però, il nostro probable, eccetera, eccetera. Sì, però ascolta, no, per l'amico, però, cioè, certo, no, certo, però io che faccio il dottore tutti i giorni, non è che ogni 73 giorni hai raddoppiato l'informazione delle cose che sai, hai aggiunto informazioni, è diverso, quindi voglio dire, se no, sempre che uno dice, sì, però delle cose che sai. Sì, però non è che fra 73 giorni appunto la vincite ci da sapere di più di quello che lui ha già detto. Quello che voglio dire, ci sarà da sapere un 12° gene, ma non la base, quindi lui ci racconta un po' le cose come. I 50 anni sì sono serviti, perché non sapevamo i batteri, sappiamo il virus, capito? Cioè, perché sennò voglio dire, tu non potresti, noi lo avremmo tutti in Italia. Poi,
Soprattutto c'è una cosa, le informazioni che si aggiungevano a vari casi, sono le informazioni della storia della lunga, anni ogni informazione che si aggiungeva faceva fare un salto. Adesso su alcuni argomenti lo fai ancora e su altri non sono paralleli, capisci?
sì, probabilmente, certo,
Sì, o si aggiungono sopra,
certo.
Stai mettendo dei pezzi che ti aggiungono ulteriori informazioni, che, come nel caso del pellicile, che non ti cambieranno la mente.
Sì, c'è tutta una serie di
Sono una
cose.
serie di cose aggiuntive, però soprattutto l'effetto Bujo, cose eccetera, sì, avere finito il genoma preciso del batterio che ti dà quella cosa che è fondamentale. Sono informazioni importantissime, un domani magari non la operi nemmeno più nella maggior parte dei casi che ora operi, riesci a dargli un antibiotico miracoloso che non
Sì,
prima però.
Certo, ma certo. No, è che se sei tutto nel push, alla fine, cioè veramente, una volta che succede che c'è un cortocircuito, il dottore non sa più fare niente, cioè voglio dire, ecco, dobbiamo E la variabilità prima di tutti ce l'ha il paziente comunque.
Rischio, soprattutto alcuni danno benissime, soprattutto le persone più anziane, è che tu devi creare la nostra esperienza è quello che hanno visto, va bene? Se una determinata patologia, cosa già non l'hanno vista, non la sanno, non la conoscono, non sanno come affrontarla. Questo deve ci sono alcune cose rare che a Siena possono capitare una volta ogni 20 anni, non è che quello che in quei 20 anni dove non si è presentata non c'era e poi dopo non è in grado di riconoscerla, cioè questo ci supporta parecchio perché vedi casisti che te non hai mai visto, cioè, io mi ci sono proprio anche trovata personalmente su queste cose, cioè te devi avere anche un po' l'umiltà di pensare e nelle persone più anziane a volte in alcune non c'è, cioè, ti dico, posso benissimo tirare in ballo mio padre, che bene o male, insomma, e comunque alcune cose erano, lui era ancora convinto, ormai se li vuole in funzione da un sacco di tempo, e se no se non le hai viste non le sai. E non è detto, le devi avere viste, però ci sono alcuni dei quali le puoi vedere anche se non l'hai proprio, se non ti è arrivato in mano il bambino con quel po' di categoria.
Infatti. Oh, mamma mia, che sto
questi podium. Questi siamo. Anche col titolo.
Good group. Good talk.
È buio lo schermo. Deve essere entrato in stand by ma non riesco a capire perché.
Is it even on?
Ok. Dai, chiamare io non ho capito.
All right, young lady. Okay.
So I was saying that when you speak, I look at you with dreamy eyes. I'm like,
Well, you're the only one. No, remember, just have fun because there's no one who knows what you're going to say. It can't possibly go wrong. What could possibly go wrong?
the boy not engaged.
Oh, you're an engaging person. That's why I picked you. It's not an accident, the three people I picked. I didn't pick you because you know how to do everything yet. I picked you because you're going to be sensational, because of how you engage people. I picked three very engaging people.
That we work together, I think so too, right?
But I mean, I can teach anyone anything, but you can't teach someone how to be an engaging, charismatic personality. You're an engaging, charismatic clinician, person. I'm not worried about that at all. Smile, speak slowly, have fun.
Yeah.
But I know you'll be great, and we'll work on the. If we don't like certain aspects of it, we'll make it better and better. But it'll certainly be very good. I'm not worried at all. No. So you can stand there, you can use your mic, or you can do this, whatever you prefer. And just go slowly, look at the screen, and slow down. Go take as long as you want, remember? They invited us, we came from far away, they started late, no one ever throws you out if they're interested in what you're saying.
They already have coffee, which is good.
And remember, look a lot at the back group, because that's other people on the screen, and I don't know, there may be 10, there may be 100, I have no idea.
Where's the screen? The one upstairs?
Shall we start again? So I'd like to ask Professor Monica Bocchia, who is our next speaker, and she is from the University of Siena. She is an hematologist. She is professor of hematology at the medical school and also at the master degree in medical biotechnology. And Monica Bocchia will speak about preparing the doctor of the future, medical school, and program evolution.
Okay, thank you very much to everybody. I would say we go down to earth now, okay, because we're talking about medical school, so what's today? When we prepared this talk, I thought that we have to have a vision. So we have to ask ourselves, preparing which doctor of the future? Who is the doctor that effectively meets the health needs of modern society? And here are the competencies that we thought are the most important one. Professionalism has to be a real good doctor. Communication skill has to talk with patients. Collaboration has to collaborate with colleagues. Management, today I know by myself that managing is very important. Health advocacy, scholarship. And these are not just competencies that we thought by ourselves. These are practically the competencies that the CanMeds roles framework decided to take in consideration when we talk about a medical expert. You see already in 1996, although this expertise were revised in 2005 and the last update is October 2015. As you can see, a medical expert is a professional, a communicator, a collaborator, a manager, a health advocate, and a scholar. But we also think that all these competencies, they have to be framed into a strong ethical values. And that's why we have a mission now. The mission is to become, or to have our students to become very good doctors. And that's what the medical school is hopefully going to do. And one sentence that could probably reassume what we think about having a good medical school is to be able to have an adequate core curriculum able to teach and assess the core competencies in a way in which core curriculum and core competencies are influencing each other. And which are the materials and methods that we have in order to cope with this vision and with this aim. Tools of teaching and tools of assessment. And if we go back to the competencies, probably we all know that here we are pretty good mainly in professionalisms and in teaching and assessment professionalism. But I have to say that probably all these other skills are less thought. And in fact, we need new tools and new topics to teach not only the professional skills, but also the so-called soft skills. So let's see what is Italian Medical School. Current picture. We have a frame in which we have to operate. We have a legislative framework. And as you see, in 2007, the Italian Ministry of Education defined the class of bachelor degree of medical school, the magistral degree. And we have another frame. In 2013, European Directive 55 established the minimum requirements for medical school. So within this framework, what we have now, essential requirements to meet in EU. Basic medical education should include at least 5 years of medical school, otherwise expressed in ECTS, European Credit Transfer System, or equivalents. In Italy, we use the CFU, University Credits, or Crediti Formativi Universitari, and all these 5 years consisting of at least 5,500 of theoretical and practical teaching hours, with or under the supervision of an academic institution, of course, our university. And how is the CFU system in Italy? The structure of the program, you see, comprises theoretical activities for a number of CFUs, clinical practice, and a final work, a thesis. And the whole system adds up to 360 CFUs with a duration of 6 years. But we have many challenges in Italian medical school. For example, we just heard now, keeping the balance between practice and theory. Of course, here, Thierry, I still put a book because I didn't know about him. Otherwise, I would have put a pad or a Twitter, but I put still the books because we believe that it's still important also to have some books. So we have to have a balance between practice and theory. Where are we in terms of Europe, in Italy? As you can see here, our basic science and clinical science is more than other countries in Europe. So meaning, on the other way, that we have a little bit less clerkship and practice, but we are working on this. In fact, I don't think it's bad to have enough theoretical background. And as you know, Italian medical education system is based on a structure of a spiral curriculum and really has got a strong tradition of theory teaching. And I think that many Italian doctors in the world have been acknowledged to have a really heavy luggage of knowledge in medicine. So it's not bad to have a lot of theory and to know a lot. Of course, the ongoing challenge is to struggle to integrate this strong theoretical structure into a suitable practical activity, because we cannot only think about, we have also to do. So what we are doing in order to cope with this challenge, and where are we going? Keep in mind that our goal is still the one I said at the beginning, to develop a medical education program in order to build up the doctors the modern society requires to answer the health needs. And we have many things to cope with. What we are trying, for example, multidisciplinary and interprofessionalism. Here the aim is to facilitate in the student the development of a multidisciplinary and interprofessional approach to the medical profession. Some tools that we are using already. Integrated courses, they are designed for creating connection between different subjects, also preclinical subjects, between different teaching methods, different clinical approaches, and so on. What we call clinical trigger is proposed in the early moments of the student pathway in order to create links between the preclinical and clinical approaches. It's a vertical integration. But of course, it's very important also to have an integrated teaching methods, able to create an horizontal integration within the topics. So we're trying. Another very important issue, a student-based medical education. The student has to be our target of new teaching methods in order to improve his awareness and skills, not only, again, in technical aspect of the profession, but also in personal development and behavior. And you see, we have many settings in which we can work. Again, we believe that integration with community, territorial, and social environment has something very important for a medical student. The future doctor should be an actor of promoting health in every professional and social context. But to hold this role, he needs to develop ethical awareness of different social and environmental aspects regarding health, health advocacy toward institutions, organizations, people, media, attitude to promote prevention and health. It's of these days. Doctors are saying you don't have to vaccinate. I mean, this is not health advocacy. Introduction to the scientific methods, another really important aspect. So evidence-based medicine pills can be given during the ordinary courses. We have to promote scientific reading and writing practice. And of course, we can have many information, billion information, we have just said so, but we have to develop a critical approach toward the international literature. Otherwise, we will be overwhelmed by international literature. And again, as I said, we think it's very important integration with National Health Service for clinical practice activities. What do we mean? We're trying to develop a large and defined program of clerkship and clinical practice from the early moments of the curriculum. The students already goes out of the university and goes toward the hospital. This is by implementing a tutorial system of teaching, employing modern techniques like problem-solving approach, and with a constant assessment also for practical skills. And we will go back to this assessment point in a minute. What do we think? We think that the clinical practice taking place in the context of both hospital and territorial care, and these represent the scenario the student interacts with, are very important, and the overlapping of teaching situation and patient care environment may represent a unique chance to improving each other context and create a synergy. But again, we are still missing something. We are on the way, probably, but we are still missing something. And I just reassume in these three things: new tools, new topics, and focus on assessment. And what do I mean? New tools of teaching and assessing the competencies the future doctor is supposed to learn. What we need to teach: strategies able to refine students' professionalism. We want to have very good doctors, but also to promote other important skills we are less used to teach and assess: practical skills, problem solving, ethical awareness. Do we assess for this? For sure not. These new tools are supposed to be useful in order to support the process of teaching, learning, and assessment. For example, simulator-centered teaching and assessment. These are key points for the new future of medical school. And of course, in this context, what I reassumed, as I'm not an expert, but the expert is here, e-learning, e-teaching, e-assessment system are strongly required. But also, we need new topics to introduce in medical school: sustainability, economics management, precision medicine is the future, ethic framework, human rights, health inequality, drugs production and regulation. Of course, we're not pharmacists, but we have to know all what's behind the drugs, because we have to manage with it. Global health, gender medicine, and also, why not, climate change, environment, and health. So new topics are needed in medical school. And why I focus on assessment? I borrowed this sentence, I a little bit changed it, by Albert Einstein. Sorry for that. But if we miss the assessment moment, we risk to vanish all the teaching process. So not only teaching, but assess if the student had learned. We need to focus on the necessity to assess if the teaching process and the curriculum program are able to foster in the future doctor, and now I want to say in the doctor of the future, those skills he's supposed to learn. And for doing this, we went back to look at the Dublin descriptors that have been written about 10 years ago, and they suggest how to assess the outcome of the university and teaching programs by looking at what? The pupil, the student, has to have a knowledge and understanding in a field of study, but application of this knowledge and understanding in an occupational work context, judgment independence, and solving capability toward problems. Again, communication skills with peers, supervisors, and clients, and now I would say with colleagues, with patients, with relatives. Capability of independent learning and updating. If I know how to study, I can keep studying. So, how can we assess? We need to structure a strong system of assessment, I think, able to check the outcome of the teaching process, what I could call the competencies learning. When? An interim assessment during and between courses, and a final assessment at the end of medical school. So here we have another need: suitable tools and techniques that should be defined for assessing the different skills that we said students must achieve. So, in my conclusion, we have a vision
competencies which are very important. We have a mission, which is medical school. Present picture. I think we have a strong structure in our university and a good theoretical learning. Present challenge are practical activity, multidisciplinary, integration with community, as what I said, a lot to do. And I hope a very near future, new tools, e-learning, e-teaching, e-assessment, simulators, new topics we talked about, and assessment with suitable tools in order to check the outcome of medical school. Thank you for your attention, and thank you to Mario Messina. We did this together, and especially to Giulia Bartalucci, who is a senior postdoctoral student at my School of Hematology, and she put all her heart in part of this. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Professor Bocchia. Any question? Okay, so we stay on the first idea that we can have a final discussion with everything, so if we don't have a question at the moment. So we move to our next speaker, who is Professor Marco Ferrari, who is from the University of Siena. He is the Dean of the School for Dental Medicine, and he will speak about training of doctors and nurses, what is the role of publishers and universities. So, please, Marco.
Thank you so much. Good morning to everybody. And just a few seconds, hopefully, to connect my computer, and I start the presentation. Collegato. Nice. Okay, let's start, ladies and gentlemen, about this short speech about the title that the organizer provided me to cover. So the training of doctors and nurses, which is the role of publishers and universities. So first of all, I want to thank the two previous speakers because they made a very interesting, very exciting presentations. So something that we need when we talk about this kind of issue. And first of all, we have to think about that till 10 years ago, more or less, the scientific knowledge was disseminated by scientific papers, journals, and Elsevier is one of the champions in the world to do that, video, and of course a file like a Keynote or PowerPoint that essentially were presented to Congress. So now the way to communicate and disseminate science or medical information, if you want, completely changed. Changed because social, mainly. The social, they come in our life, and in the last 10 years, different websites and socials started to replace the traditional way to cache scientific knowledge, creating a sort of parallel source. So, what is the problem? My presentation is not a presentation, it's just launching a lot of questions on the table and then hopefully to discuss and to get the answer together. Who are the actors? Who is making the scientific knowledge? And who are the people looking for scientific knowledge? So the actors are many. We are talking about scientists, students, doctors, nurses, patients, manager of healthcare, public and private institutions, publisher, of course, because it's their own business, and media, and socials, and many others that we can add to this kind of list. And who is making the scientific knowledge? That is very important in my view. Usually scientists, students, doctors, and then maybe nurses, publishers in some way, media, socials. And who are the people looking for scientific knowledge? More or less as always the same people. They are involved in the same world of need for knowledge. But we have to clarify one issue. When we talk about institutions, we talk about private institution and public institution. And we are in a public institution, we are not in a private institution. Our system, our health national system, is a public, mainly, organization. Anyway, and the publisher, as it was clearly already stated, want to help us through great people like we listen today, how to build a clinical decision support strategy which consistently delivers sustainable, high-quality, cost-efficient healthcare. So that is the goal and why we are talking today. So we have to think that we want to have, we would love to have a consistent, sustainable, uniform, high-quality, cost-efficient healthcare. And just, I don't want to repeat, Peter, what you say already, but so it's clear that CDS is the key point for what we are talking. But the point is, can we consider CDS as a guidelines? Because if we move to guidelines in our country, guidelines is made by the Ministry of Health. So we are already touching something that is a little bit tricky. So who is going to make the guidelines of therapies? In this country, the Minister of Health has some technical table to organize for each area of medicine at least, some guidelines. How they can be implemented in our national health system can be done only under the Minister of Health, or, if you prefer, under the regional power or control of the health system. And then we have, and that is one of the main points, in my view, we have to think about, is not a critique, it's just to think about difference among regions, countries, and continents. So I know a little bit the system in US, I know a little bit the system in UK. Are two different systems. UK is more public-oriented, but with a lot of freedom compared to us from some areas. US is another story. It's a private, mainly private-oriented system. So, and then we have to face, we have to accept, we cannot escape from that we have a new generation of PowerPoint keynote people. These people, they pretty often many doctors, dentists like to document very well, making beautiful pictures and videos what they do in their own practice or job, and they post on social media the picture and the videos, just because they want to have likes. And they want to add likes, they want to have a big number of likes. But the social media do not have any filter, or really few, and what is posted showed is not reliable scientifically, pretty often. So we need something that can be scientifically acceptable. But any information or topic is received similarly. Think about heinous crime or scientific information. They arrive from the screen that I'm using in the same way. And different treatment for same disease can be proposed. who can make the choice that from the screen, treatment is good and the other treatment is not. So, of course, there is not an official pile of the social media. Or at least Facebook, LinkedIn, don't want to be considered like that. You know that? Because the big issue about money they have to pay to the European community is because they are considered by the European Parliament or government as a publisher. And they don't pay taxes for that. Or we can consider Facebook and LinkedIn as an editor, publisher, with their own legal fiscal responsibilities. So what is the role of the publisher? What is the role of the university? And how we can make compatible? So for me, this is the main part that I love to discuss. The university produces book, paper, files, and videos to teach to our students. That is exactly our main goal. And update scientists and doctors. The publisher paper in International Impact Factor peer review journal has the filter of the peer review process that can or should guarantee the quality of the publisher paper, and this procedure is worldwide accepted. Everything can provide to the students or the scientific community has the filter of the university institution or of a single member of them, if we accept it, of course. And the university produces science and knowledge, and their economical interest is based on competing for grants at the international, national level, and the money may come from the institution as well, privates. So the only real interest we have is to promote ourselves or our career, just to be very honest, and then to get money for our study, our school, our institutions. So what can do or may do possible a group of university? I'm sure that you know Coursera website is made by a group of American university, and they organize more or less smaller than what Elsevier is proposing us, some topics, and in each topic you can go in and then you can update yourself if that topic is what you look for. Not only medicine, of course, in everything. What is the possible role of professor of a university? We feel the need to support our students, and we are obliged to support our students. So this is what we do in our group, in our school here in Siena. We made, with a very low cost, believe me, a website in which we update through video our students. More or less are the video that we use to teach to our students when we do class. We have, of course, clinical case, step by step, in order to show, and then we have a presentation, the PowerPoint or the keynote, and we post on the website. But let's see the possible role of the publisher. The publisher produces books, papers, can post keynote or PowerPoint files and video to share the science to scientists, doctor, nurse, and patient, and anybody want to come in. The publisher support and publish a paper in International Impact Factor peer review journals, has the filter of the peer review process that should guarantee the quality of the publisher papers, and this procedure is worldwide accepted. Everything can provide to the student or to the scientific community has a filter or not. So the discussion, in my view, is what Elsevier is going to propose us. Has a filter? Who is going to make the filter? Is it possible to imagine a cooperation between the university institution and the publisher? To what condition? Do they have similar goals? And the publisher publish science and knowledge with a clear economical interest based on well-known business concept, and that there is nothing against. So if we want, we accept. If we don't want, we don't accept. So what might be a possible cooperation? In a possible cooperation between university and publisher, who can make the filter of the published material? The publisher, ourselves, I mean the university, or what else? Or who? How science and knowledge can be selected? Who can do that? The university or the publisher, both? who can have access to the material posted in the web made in cooperation between university and publisher. Because our web, just homemade web, are only for our students. They have a password, go in, and it's only dedicated to our own students. What type of economical relation can be built between university and publisher? So that is not my business, but that is, I'm sure that my rector is thinking about in case. Who is going to manage the common website from scientific point of view and economical point of view? Because we know that behind a web or behind a proposal like Elsevier is making, there is a lot of work, a lot of effort, a lot of investment in money, and of course, in people, in human resources. In human, they have to spend on that, and so that means money. So in conclusion, and hopefully I stay wider in the time, we can only appreciate the initiative of Elsevier, but some calibration, first of all, to our national health system and university system and mission should be done. And clarification of role of all actors and discussion about cost are desirable, because otherwise I'm sure that we'll not move on. And of course I put a lot of questions. If you have other questions to me, I'd be very glad.
So actually now I will ask whether there are answers rather than questions. But I think we can, okay.
Thank you.
That's a great talk, because it's very clear. And for us, these are the talks we've already had with many ministries of health, many hospitals, many universities around the world who are asking the same questions. And as a for-profit business, we have to ask the same questions. So we partner extensively with universities and health systems around the world for a number of reasons. But let's get to some of the specifics. To have someone who understands the questions of that detail, you're very fortunate, because a lot of people cannot so clearly state it. We have to also think about the different types of solutions. So for simple reference solutions, most people leave the filtering up to the user, right? Because you look up a question online about a disease, you can get sources, it tells you where all the references are, you can choose. Where we really need to be very aware of a country, a region, a city, a hospital, is on what I talked about as push solutions. So the classic example is order sets. So if you're in Australia, the worst thing possible is to have an order set written based on something American. They hate it. You could cross out American and put Australian, they'll accept it, but otherwise. So on order sets or nursing skills that really say, here is how to do it, our tools allow you two things. They allow you to use the American or European guidelines, or to build your own. Because it's not realistic to think that the way you take care of breast cancer in Siena is the way that you take care of it in New York or in Tokyo. In fact, the way you take care of breast cancer in Siena, I have learned from my friend Guido, is probably not the way you take care of it in Florence. So the tools have to have a main goal of making it easy to create the information that you choose. So the order set tools allow your government or your university to very easily and virtually have many different people create the orders for a disease. So if you're in Australia, where the government simply asks the hospitals to work together, but the ministry doesn't have the final say, they agree that the Royal College of Medicine, of Pediatrics in Sydney will create the orders for Australian pediatric care. And the National Cancer Institute in Sydney will create the cancer protocols. And there are hospitals in Melbourne, Australia, that are experts in infectious disease, and Brisbane in dentistry, so they do that.
In other countries, like yours, it's more challenging because the ministry wants to own all of this. And honestly, few ministries have the skills to do it all. In the US, the government chose to own it. How much do you think lawyers know about medicine? It's a disaster. So what we would hope is that we work with the best universities and together respectfully influence the Ministry of Health to understand that it is your knowledge and our tools that they should use. That's what we do elsewhere. We partner with the best universities and together go and speak to the ministry, make them believe they still are making the decisions, but we have to work as a group. We call that localization. We localize almost every product or we can't stay in business. So you're asking the right questions. We already partner around the world. And part of being here today is to promote that discussion. And it needs to be honest. Your goals and our goals, some are the same and some are different. You have students, I have shareholders. But most of what we want is the same. I can't make money for my shareholders selling you Japanese information, and you can't help your students with Japanese information. So I applaud such a clear and honest talk, and I would say any good publisher, including some of our competition, already has these talks and wants to continue. So thank you. That was very insightful. I appreciate it.
And at the end, we can keep on with this very, very interesting discussion, if you wish. Now it's time for calling the next speaker, who will be Dr. Ximena Alvira. She is Account Development Manager at Elsevier. She is a medical doctor and a doctor in neuroscience. She has practiced in the emergency department in several hospitals in countries and worked as a researcher and medical writer, and she is now involved in a clinical strategy project in Elsevier, and she will speak about bringing the hospital into the classroom and how students can benefit from early exposure to clinical tools. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Where's the changer? Oh, the slide changer here. Yep. Okay, so hi, everyone. I'm a little bit nervous, to tell you the truth. It's very imponente to be in Siena, and I would have never thought I would be here 16 years ago when I came from Colombia, the land of, I'm not going to say Pablo Escobar, I'm going to say Shakira and La Bicicleta, and so I'm very honored, and thank you very much. And I can say Sono Ximena, and also Io mangio la mela, right? That's as far as my Italian goes for now. So yes, I'm a doctor. I came to Spain, I went to Spain to study neuroscience because the brain is the most exciting organ there is. I stayed, so I worked also as a medical writer, writing papers for other people, other researchers and doctors. And then Elsevier grabbed me and I worked as taxonomy editor. So I've done lots of things, of bits and pieces here and there. But today is not about what makes me different to some of you or to all of you. I think we have one thing in common here, all of us, and it's that at some point in our lives, we have been, we are, or we're going to be patients. And when that time comes, we want to make sure the team treating us, the team of nurses or physicians treating us are the best prepared they can be. And there's no better place to start that than the university. It's in your hands. When you are at the bedside of the patient, it's already too late, right? So when I'm approached, and I wrote several things that Professoressa Bocchia, because I'm very bad at retaining stuff. So I appreciate that I had a paper. And clinical trigger, integrated courses, all of that came into my mind because it reminded me of when I studied medicine. In a very small medical school in Colombia, there were 2 careers only, medicine and odontology in dentistry. And I was fortunate because it was like a school. And the first thing they told me when I went in was that this is a biopsychosocial. 3 words, biopsychosocial. And I saw almost 64 subjects during my career. Anthropology, economics, epidemiology. And very early into my training, I was facing real life patients. I don't know if they appreciate it because I was really sent out to suture, to do prenatal assessments, everything. But that gave me a view of disease and patients and health that I think very little people have. And I really appreciate it. I should go back and tell my professors, thank you, you know. So when a friend of mine, or my relatives, my sister and my mom comes to me and says, well, you know, the doctor said this, the doctor said that. What do you think? I can't help to judge their decisions. You know, would I have done the same? Would I have told them differently? And why is that? What is that urge that we as physicians tend to judge what other colleagues, if we're all supposed to be right, we have the same information, why do I judge it? Well, and Peter said this very clearly, because medical errors occur. And when they occur, they can be fatal. So we don't want our students to be in this position, right? So what is happening here? This is a question. When do we get there? What happened here? Well, this is an example. This is Julia. She's 65 years old. She arrives at the emergency department. She slipped, bumped her head, but she's conscious. She's happy. She looks well, a little bit fat here in the middle, but she's okay otherwise. And young Dr. Alvira, who knows a lot, just recently graduated, says, okay, but you know, you bumped your head, you're not that young anymore. Just go in the emergency room for observation and I'll order a CT scan. So she goes in the emergency room, he starts ordering a CT scan, but a few moments afterwards, she's in, she starts sweating profusely and vomits. And young Dr. Alvira says, oh, her head bump is worsening. Maybe she has a hematoma. So I'm going to call the neurologist and I'm going to rush her to that CT scan. Unfortunately, Julia suffers a massive heart attack. And she's rushed into the intensive care unit after CPR, advanced cardiac life support, is performed on her. What happened, Dr. Alvira? You knew she had diabetes, you knew she had high cholesterol, and you knew she had an age where asymptomatic myocardial infarction can happen. And only performing an EKG, which is almost inexpensive, would have saved all the complications, saved you from all the complications Julia is now suffering. So again, what is the problem? Dr. Alvira was doing the best she knew. She was focusing on the neurologic part, on the bump. Well, how I see it is that we are very trained very early in school, in medical school or nursing school. And I believe we have a responsibility in that too, to see things as pieces of a puzzle. We see symptoms, we see a disease, but we forget, because we sell books, right? And every book is a subject. That's a big problem. So we see the acute myocardial infarction, but we forget that that piece, that heart, is part of a whole picture. And that whole picture is a person. So if we forget about the person, about everything else, we don't see the rest of it. If I were Dr. Alvira now, I would say, this person is a little bit obese, she looks well, but she has an age, you know, just put her in observation and perform an EKG. That's looking at the whole picture. And that mentality cannot wait until you're facing a patient, because Julia will suffer. You have to broaden the student's mind very early into their education. And that's our responsibility as we speak, publishers, your responsibility as teachers, as tutors, as colleagues, right? So, oh, I need, here, can you put the play on the image? There you go. No. This is just because I liked it very much. It looks very nice, the 3D image. But it's a true question, and this relates more to when you're a student. Is a heart just a heart? Yeah, when I study anatomy, it is just a heart, right? Veins and ventricles and valves. But doesn't it have an embryology? Part of it, or anatomy, it does, certainly. Histology, yeah, sure. Biology, of course it does. Pathology, physiology, you can name it all. But it's all in one heart. So why view it just as a heart? Again, we're looking at the pieces. We're not looking at the big picture. We're missing Julia. We're seeing the bump in her head. Fortunately, there are solutions. And as I see it, well, some solutions could be this, but before that, some solutions could be expose students very early into their lives into patients. That's difficult. I was fortunate. My patients were not so fortunate, I believe, some of them. But I was fortunate that I was able to touch and feel the person, how they were feeling. And that was very important to create a good environment so that I got to know the patient well. If you don't have that opportunity, we as leaders of information have the responsibility to deliver content in a way it can be used so that things like Julia's case don't happen. And this is where clinical tools come in hand, right? So you have information joined with technology, joined with advanced tools to give all this whole picture and something that I've heard before, multidisciplinary, vertically integrated learning. But it's very focused in the students, student-based learning. I mean, they have to be able to grasp that technology, to use that technology, to grasp the knowledge, to obtain a multidisciplinary, vertically integrated learning. This is the closer it can get to real life if you don't have a patient in front saying, I heard here, but I have other things. So, how do I see clinical tools? If I were a student I'm not going to tell you when, but back then, if I were a student, I carried my Harrison, right, the Bible, for me. I'm sorry, Elsevier, but it was. And I could only carry one book, and one of the two books they had, I couldn't carry also the Robbins and also Gayton. It's impossible, they're huge. So I waited until I got home, when I was too sleepy to start studying, and when I started, Harrison, if you've read it, it starts like back in 1998 and it was impossible. So, of course, a clinical tool has to be dynamic, has to be very complete. And these are some of the features that I would like you to remember of how I see clinical tools now. If I were a student, what would I like to have, right? Has to have abundant, varied content. This means not only a lot of books, a lot of journals, but a lot of types of contents. Images, guidelines, drug monographs, patient education, videos, everything integrated. It's not worth it if it's separated by chapters or by parts, by puzzle parts. And you'll see how it works. It has to have, as you know, valuable content, reliable sources, that whenever you look at it, you know you're looking at the right thing, that you're not scared to make a decision on what you read. It has to be multidisciplinary. It has to go across disciplines. Sometimes when I'm doing training to physicians, I train on some of our tools, and they're surprised because I look up at, for example, vertebroplasty. I'm at the radiology department, and they find an answer in a pain journal. Would they have looked initially in a pain journal? Probably not. But why do we care so much where the answers come from? The important is the answer. So this is where multidisciplinarity comes in handy. We break the borders of the books, and that's important. It has to facilitate problem-based learning. Again, thank you, Professor Issa. we are not focusing on the myocardial infarction. We're focusing on Julia. And she has problems. She has a weight problem. She has a diabetes problem that can lead to the eventual outcome that she had. Well, we have to stop there. So when you have tools where you can search by symptoms, by patient demographics, well, it closes what it's in the books, it reaches out to what you face in reality. I'm not searching here for myocardial infarction. I'm searching for 65-year-old woman with nausea and chest pain. That's clinical settings. Again, then you can narrow by something that it's put into practical without going out of the search. This is flexibility, transversality again. It has to promote critical thinking, and here I really want to reflect on something. I know there are abundant tools who offer summaries, which are good for what they are. They are summaries. They're tertiary sources of information, right? We want primary, secondary, and tertiary sources of information. We have to make our students and us think critically on what they're reading. We cannot give everyone just a summary of things. That's good when you have a movie, summarize The Lord of the Rings, which is endless, yes, but not when you have Julia on the bedside, right? You want to have to be able to read an article and say, well, you know that intervalo de confianza of this clinical study is not correct. It doesn't match the probability, right? So you have to be critical of what you're reading. This is very important in medicine and in any clinical specialty or discipline. And also have the possibility also to have the summaries, because not always you can go deep into the clinical trial, the phase 3 trial, or the meta-analysis to look into the details. Maybe you just want the summaries of consolidated evidence. You're at the bedside and you want to search for quick information. We have it. So having all the spectrum of learning is very important. And here again, you know, systematic reviews. I don't have to go over this because we really want to make of our students critical thinkers and future researchers. Without research, a country does not advance, and that's a fact. Sadly, in Spain, with the crisis, researchers have fled, and investment in research decreased by 64%. Most of my friends left, and the country is left with a lot of banks, a lot of oil companies, and not a lot of brains, and that is very, very sad. It has to provide real patient data, because we're going to see real patients when we graduate. So having, again, 66-year-old woman was admitted, these things we can relate to, their clinical cases. Also we have imaginary, because I told you before, I don't have a good memory when I see written stuff. I fall asleep easily, fortunately, and then when I see things, and then I go, now I understand. And a few months ago, a friend of mine was going to have a baclofen pump inserted. He had spastic muscular disease. I didn't know what it was. I knew what baclofen was. I knew what a pump was, but I didn't know what it looked like. So I went into Clinical Key, searched for baclofen pump. I saw the image, and then I went into the text. So you know that learning through different types of contents consolidates learning much better, or acquiring knowledge. It's much better, it's much easier. So being able to go to the video, then to the source, from the image, back to the book, from the journal, multidisciplinary, transverse, or vertical learning is definitely one of the key points of a clinical tool. Help improve diagnostic skills. We all want to be better clinicians, right? And if we don't have Julia in front of us when she's not sick, listening to her heart, measuring her blood pressure, then we want to be able to have something that does that for us or that helps us understand. Again, we have the clinical presentation. We can search with different terms. So again, this is a way of searching. I'm not searching for, I don't know, Nelson textbook of pediatrics and then going into the book to see where I can find the clinical presentation. No, I type it, type the words, and I get the information. That's point of care. That's what we want. Point of care is not only at the bedside, I'm caring everywhere. I always care because I'm a physician and we should care. So again, having the videos from the Braunwald to understand what is Kussmaul sign, how does it look like? I never knew what it was. I don't even know how you write it. Now that I see this, I'm like, okay, this is something I understand. And when I see it in a patient, I'll know how it looks like. So real patient data helps improve our clinical diagnostic skills. Easy to use, of course, flexible search. You can use natural language. We don't want to know, we don't have to think of, oh, do I use this word, do I use this term, do I use Booleans and or? No, just write, type it. Communicate with patients. You have the information. So the system has to be smart enough to understand what we want. We have to be smart for something else, but not for this. It has to be easy and flexible. Flexible, I mean, you can use or search using different ways of searching. For example, within a textbook that we like, we can also search. Within a journal also. So again, this is flexibility of the clinical tools that we have. Time saving, of course. If knowledge doubles every 23 days, it has to be time saving. And also because we know that in medical school, we do lots of stuff more than just study. That's something in addition. We make presentations, we go to congresses, we go to meetings, we present in class. All those things just add up to our work. So we have a tool that helps us be more efficient in our work so that we can dedicate those other hours to studying and really learning. Well, I think we'd appreciate that. So again, being able to make presentations of using the more than 3 million images that we have to make presentations with just a click of the mouse. Being able to save content for later reviewing or to share it with our peers. I found this interesting thing, let me share with you, send it. I found this interesting group of things, share the tag. Look, you will be receiving a tag from me. And it has to be mobile. And we're mobile, all of you are mobile. We go from one hospital to another, we go from one country to another. So information has to go with us. And it cannot stay on a shelf or in the computer someplace static. It has to move with us. So mobility, so that we can have access to information 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, right? So this is the future. Well, this is the now, not the future. This is the now. This is how we see it. Yes, books are still a big part of education, but we have it. We have it all. We have it inside, right? They will hurt your back much less because you don't have to carry them. So we want to move from this to this, because this is the future of our students who are going to be beside Julia, saying, okay, Julia, I know you have a bump in your head, but you also have this and this. So let me just check for this, because I'm seeing the whole picture. I'm not seeing just the puzzle. And we want to avoid this. So that's all for me now. I hope I've delivered my message. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much, because I think we've integrated everything very nicely, and we all share one thing in common besides being patients, is that we care. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I think and I hope that after this presentation, when we are now having a clear idea of what is the final idea and what is the target. And so, is there any question? I'd like to open again the point on the sources of information and filters on these, which eventually bring us to reliability of the information we have. So I remember during your presentation you said that one of the most important source at the moment of information is Wikipedia, where you have So, which is actually true. So it's when you Google something, usually the first thing that comes out is the Wikipedia site and Wikipedia information on that. So, but this point on reliability of information is actually, in my opinion, is crucial, because how can you know? And it depends on which is the knowledge you have on the topic, so that you can understand when an information is correct and when it is not. So if I go to Wikipedia and looking for something that I have really a few information about, so it would be difficult to understand whether it is correct or not. So reliability of sources, reliability of the filters and information that you get, I think is a crucial point. So everybody can tell something which is wrong. So even when we teach, we might be wrong. We might say something which is not correct, but at the end we can compare information and students will be able to compare. So I'll be saying something on which is not fitting what another professor is saying, so we can compare. So I think this is why probably if you have
Sure.
comment on that.
So my youngest daughter is 14, and she says, "Dad, maybe I'll be a lawyer." And after I stop screaming for an hour, "No, what did we do wrong?" I say, well, lawyers in the United States have done a couple of things that are good, which is hard to think of. But one thing they've done in medicine is the constant threat of lawsuits, constant for doctors and nurses in hospitals. So for a physician to be sued, or a nurse to be sued, or a hospital to be sued, and claim their treatment was based on Google or Wikipedia, you may as well just write a big check, because right on their website, Wikipedia will tell you this is not evidence-based knowledge. So the challenge for companies like ours was to create systems that were fast enough that in 2 clicks, 30 seconds, 60 seconds, you could get to your answer. Now we've done that. The second challenge in many countries is the common question of, well, Wikipedia is free. Why isn't yours free? I said, well, because ours has to go through real filters, as our colleagues have said. Machines and people constantly looking at every single paper published every day and comparing this against very strict rules for what is evidence and what is not, and then deciding, is it ready to go to the bedside for a nurse or a doctor? That's thousands of people every hour of every day working. So in a country like mine, where there's the threat of a lawsuit for using websites, it's a little easier. In countries where people don't feel any risk of using Wikipedia, it's a much bigger problem, because an institution will say to us, you want us to pay $150,000 for that tool? And we'll say, yes, we can save you $4 million by using it. We'll show you how. We don't have $150,000. So it's a very big battle, because the reality is the best hospitals and governments in the world have finally begun to realize they cannot afford not to use evidence-based medicine. But many countries aren't there yet. So they say to their students, use Wikipedia. It's wrong, not a problem, but it's free. But in our system, we have very strict criteria for what we believe is credible. We rank information by the level of evidence. We've been doing this for 130 years, not quite as long as Santa Maria has been practicing medicine, but 130 years. And right now, Elsevier supplies more than 25% of the entire world's medical information to 20 million providers. Because of that responsibility, we have very strict evidence criteria. We work with certain countries and universities to make sure they agree with it, or we can alter it. But in the States, we carry legal liability as well to make sure it's right, which is a big deal. It is a challenge. because less credible material is often free. It's just not credible.
Yeah, this is exactly the point that I was.
I don't know if it's a question, it's just a real consideration. Being still a little bit a traditional doctor, and sometimes just listening what you said is very beautiful. I mean, think about, I click, I see, I'm sure I have evidence, I don't have to worry about making mistakes because, it's written there. But it looks like a little bit to me, and pardon me if I'm a little bit critical, like when you use the navigator with the car, we started now to use navigator, and we don't know where the navigator is bringing us because we lost the curiosity to look into a map and to see where are really going. And I think we have to be a little bit cautious that doctors don't become like drivers with the navigator. So that's for me, my comment.
It's a great comment. We're so busy that most doctors will read an abstract and that's it. I mean, let's be honest, even students. If you ask most practicing physicians, when was the last time you sat down and read the full paper in Lancet? Not just the abstract. So one of the better things about the technology is that it can link that abstract immediately to the full study. But the problem remains that someone may not click because they don't have time. And this is a problem not just about publishing and universities. As healthcare reform expects doctors to be busier and busier and to learn economics of medicine as well as medicine, there's less and less time. In one major hospital system in the United States, the average time between doctor and patient is 8 minutes. My colleagues see 85 patients a day. So even with the technology, they have to decide, do I read this paper or see my daughter before she goes to sleep? So your point is a concern at a higher level than either the university or the publisher, which is if we expect our physicians to be more than just using the GPS, to understand the changes they're seeing in healthcare, we have to accept that they'll see fewer patients, which means more doctors and paying for more. And it's a battle everywhere we go. In the United States, because as my colleagues pointed out, it's a big private system, you can advertise. Our doctors spend more time with you and have more time to learn, and people will pay for that. But in countries with universal health care, it's not a surprise that if you're wealthy in Canada, where do you think you come to for your health care? If you're wealthy in Asia, where do you come? If you're wealthy in Europe, where do you come? You come to the United States because you get right in line and you can pick a hospital that lets me as a cancer surgeon spend 2 hours in our first appointment, and I'm paid for that. But there are fewer and fewer places where doctors and nurses and administrators have time to spend with you. For us, the librarian, it's interesting we have librarians here. In the United States and in North America, the fear of the librarians is they won't have a job anymore because the students and the doctors and nurses all have the information. When I talk to large groups of librarians, I recently talked to 2,000 librarians, I said the new opportunity for librarians in our system, because doctors and nurses have no time, is patient education. But the problem you're talking about is worldwide, and it's more of a philosophical decision that societies have to make. Do you want these young students in the background just to be robots that just write whatever's on their iPad? Or do you want them to sit and talk to your mother and understand her? And it comes down to philosophy versus money. It's very, very concerning. I share your concern.
Thank you. Any other question or comment?
Thank you. Mario Messina, I am a sergeant, a pediatric sergeant.
I thought you were a very good-looking man, yeah.
I would like to consider a few points. Then I have a question. At the moment, we are talking about the future of the doctors. It's time to look at the future and understand what doctors, what patients, and what type of medicine we are going to have inside our national health service. I think that innovation, chronicity, welfare, and sustainability are the main issues to consider. So, my question is, how can the clinical decision support help students improve the quality of their studies in medicine?
So how can the clinical decision support help students improve their quality as we move forward? So it gets back to your comment. Students have so much to learn. How much time do they have to learn more deeply than an abstract? How much time do they have to realize what happened with that patient? That hitting her head was only the result of cardiac ischemia. So we teach students to memorize, but that's not how you treat patients. What we hope with the technology, the clinical decision support, is two things. One is speed to answer. Because if time is so critical, think about our surgery residents. There's barely enough time to sleep, and when I was a resident, eat one meal a day, and I had an apartment in my hospital. We lived in the hospital for 7 years. No time. The technology allows us to have students ask a question structured, very clear, or very unclear, but quickly gets to their answer. Because one of the challenges in being a student is you don't always know what to ask, right? So the technology, as machines get smarter, we talk about machine learning. A week after I left Brazil, when I search Google, it's still advertising Brazil to me. So we have the technology, so our machines can learn about individual students. So Elsevier has an education team for medical students and nursing students that really allows us to understand each student's strength and weakness as individuals, and can push information to the student after self-assessment that tells the student and us, here's an area of weakness. This student is struggling in microbiology. This student is struggling in neuroanatomy. The technology has become so advanced that we can identify weaknesses through electronic assessment and save time helping the students. So time is one. But as my colleague pointed out, we have to have information in technology that isn't just an answer. Here is diabetes. You have to present the bigger picture, the cases, the examples. So more and more, the technology becomes, it incorporates anatomy, it incorporates physiology, biochemistry, but also all underneath an umbrella of the global patient. How is your patient presenting? How old is the patient? What other diseases does the patient have? Now we include social history. Is the patient homeless, alcoholic? Did the patient just move to Siena from Germany? We include that in a lot of our technology, so you have a bigger picture of the person. And we have to teach the students that, or they'll become robots that miss the heart attack because the patient came in saying, I bumped my head. So it saves time. It individualizes the patient, the student's strengths and weaknesses. And more, it's still not good, but more and more it's becoming global. But the individual learning has been very powerful for our students. It saves a huge amount of time in a class of 150 students in an anatomy class to know that this student is struggling with the biliary system, this student is struggling with the sympathetic nervous system.
from simple electronic assessments taken after dinner at home and to push whatever the teacher wants pushed at those students with a touch of a button. Very powerful.
So thank you. And if there is no other question, I'd like to thank everybody, the audience and the speakers for this very interesting discussion. And I'll leave a few words to Badalamenti for concluding this interesting morning. Thank you.
Yeah, just a few words, because when we met with Eugenio Garcia in July, and we tried to discuss what would have been nice to organize in order to promote this new direction of clinical key, because this, as we understood, is a completely different direction compared to what it was supposed to be a few years ago. Now, clinical key is something that is looking at becoming a real support for the activities inside the teaching, inside the universities. And I think it was a very good idea to decide to organize such a conference, this workshop, that I think it has been really useful, because we learned a lot. We need to thank Mr. Edelstein, because he's so smart, but also so able to give us the feeling of what we can expect from such a new engine, and how this new engine can improve, can learn from themselves, and can provide a new generation of infrastructure. I think that our teacher in the university gave us a very important input about what is the direction where we need to go in order to provide something that fit with the expectation of our teaching, but also of our experience of what the doctors are doing in their daily life inside the universities. So I think there are a lot of new issues that would be interesting to go more in deep. What is the problem? Is there a gap of languages? How much the multidisciplinary object that Mr. Siviera showed us can bridge the gap that we have in between different skills in the languages. How is an international system can go in direction of fulfilling the expectation of the national rules or the national organization. So I think this is just a starting point, a quite interesting one. I would like to invite you to check what clinical key can provide for you or for us, because I remind you that is still available until the end of November through the university functionalities. You can check it also from home, evidently. And this is very important for us, because we need your feedback. We need to understand from you how much is important or what need. And I think Elsevier is interested to know from you what could be changed or what can be improved in order to have a better system. After that, we agreed with Elsevier to have a negotiation, because I remember, I remind you that this is done in the national framework of the CRUI organization. So starting from January, Elsevier will organize a kind of roadshow going in every university that asks for having a direct and specific presentation of this system, and then we will have other 2 or 3 months of training in order to decide which could be the future of this system.
And I would just add one comment, if I may. If you go, I encourage you to log on to Clinical Key and play with it. Playing with it will not shut it down. It won't launch missiles. It won't turn out the lights. Play with it. You will see that you can search by the type of resource, books, journals, videos, patient education. Play with the buttons that tell you you can take a picture or an image and put it into a PowerPoint with a touch of a button. Play with the one that lets you mail an article, download a PDF. Just play with it like you would with Excel. And within a short period of time, I think you'll see the power of it. If there are questions, we have people here who speak your language, not my terrible Italian, who with a phone call can teach you how to use it. But if you're afraid to play with it, you'll never understand how powerful it is. So don't be afraid. You can't hurt anything.
So please join me in applauding our speaker and our panelists for this exciting workshop we have had.